Welcome to Accurate Basketball, a father-son podcast about all things NCAA D1 men's college basketball. I'm your host, Curtis D. Acker, and with me as always is my co-host and father, Mark Acker. Dad, thanks for joining again today. Congratulations on the varsity sectional win tonight.
Yeah, right. One more. Now we're into the finals, and looking forward to that Saturday night. And hopefully we can bring our season home with a sectional final, and then see where it goes from there.
Yes, that would be fantastic. I really hope that happens for you guys.
Exactly.
And speaking of good stuff happening in basketball, the South Florida Bulls have now been named to the AP Top 25 poll for the first time ever in school history. That happened this Monday. We're going to talk about just the team as a whole, what the makings of that team is, and then a little projection as to what might happen for March Madness here. So, Dad, let's get right into it with talking about the game that you watched. We had a little homework to do. You watched the game that they played neutrally against Florida State. What did you see in that game from the team?
Yeah, that game. So from a South Florida perspective, what I saw was a team that really, even though it was early in the season, they really worked well together. That was kind of, and they're kind of the one word I wrote down, the biggest word was opportunistic. They really just, nothing stood out specifically. They didn't necessarily, they ran when they needed to run, right? If they had an opportunity to fast break, they did, but it wasn't like that was their only play. They didn't forcibly make that happen. They just kind of took what they were given from an offensive perspective. And then defensively, what I saw was Kashawn Pryor. He's an interesting, what I wrote, he's awkward, but he's athletic. He's just an interesting dynamic of an athletic and very smart player. Meaning he's really good at controlling what he does on the court, and he was disruptive defensively, very, very disruptive. Created a lot of energy and from his defense to turn it into offense. But what a diverse player! He brought the ball up 6'10", right? I think he is.
Yes, 6'10". That's
6'10",
what he's listed as.
Right. Blocks shots, brings the ball up the court, knocks down a three, all in the first half of the game, and he kind of did it all. And played, like I said, very aggressive defensively as well in terms of hedging, recovering, switching, whatever it might be that he was asked for. So really exciting, a fun team to watch. Like I said, things didn't really stand out. Even Selton Miguel, he scored 20 points, leading scorer in the game in 32 minutes. I hardly even noticed him. I didn't really even notice him playing the game. Nothing against him. I think they gelled as a unit. That was kind of probably the biggest thing I noticed in that game was that. How about the game you watched?
Yes, so I ended up watching their most recent win against SMU, and it was more or less the same. Like Miguel was the leading scorer once again, and I noticed him really well. But Selton Miguel had some big plays in the second half of the first half, and that's really what set him apart. He didn't end up scoring nearly as much in the second half. That's more when Case and Pryor ended up taking over instead. But I just see the same thing that you're talking about. The team gels so well together. One thing that really stood out to me about this team is that they don't necessarily have the most skill on their team. Like they're not a Kentucky, you know what I mean? They're not sending players to the NBA. Although you could argue that there's a couple guys that might end up developing into that at some point in their careers, just as low-level NBA guys. But they work so well together as a team. They make that next pass. There were multiple opportunities in the game where they had wide-open looks, but it wasn't the greatest shot, and they moved the ball to an even greater shot, like hit to the corner or something like that for a corner three. And that's what stood out to me the most. It was very, very impressive to watch. I was very engaged with this South Florida team after all the research that we've done this past week on them.
Yep. Exactly. It's awesome. Yeah, I agree. I even made a note in a game, the game note I was watching. It didn't seem like there was this definitive playmaker or even playmakers that were really trying to intently drive, kick, that kind of thing, and set up others. They kind of all did that. They kind of worked together and again took what they were given from a defensive perspective. Were very patient with the ball, and like you said, one more pass, they had a shot kind of scenario. They're unselfish in that regard. But oddly enough, if you look at this team, break this team down statistically, and again, we'll talk about assists since we're talking about passing right now. The team averages 15 assists a game, 14.7. Right. Only one player averages over 3 assists per game. Jaden Reed, 3.3 assists per game. That's a low number, right? And then 2 others just barely over 2 per game. So again, to the point, I think they all kind of contribute to what their activity is. Yeah, a pretty unique team to watch for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And that's
go ahead.
What's that? No, ask your question, please.
I was gonna say, so given that scenario, what's really the glue that brings this group together? What is it that makes them all act as they do?
Perfect. I'm glad you asked that question. That's what I was gonna get into. The glue is Amir Abdur-Rahim, and if that name isn't familiar to you, that is the head coach of the team. He is, without a doubt, what has brought this South Florida program up, in my opinion. And he's so humble about it, too. Like, I was watching some press conferences on him. First off, every single time he starts off, he always says, first and foremost, I want to thank our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for everything. He's very, very humble when it comes to that. And then secondly, there was someone that had asked him, he was like, hey, like, what is it was talking about Case and Pryor. He was saying, like, hey, like, he was starting, and then now he's coming off the bench, but he's producing really well. Like, what was that? Was you benching him that kick in the pants for him? And he was like, no, I don't want to take credit for that. That sounds so conceited. I don't want to be the one that takes credit for that. It was all credit to him for coming in with the right attitude afterwards. So he's great when it comes to that. He's just very humble. So he also was the Kennesaw State head coach for the past 4 seasons. Last year, he went 26-9, and then he ended up having them win their first ASUN championship, and they were also first NCAA March Madness appearance as a 14 seed last year, where they lost to Xavier. But big note on him as well, he also recruited Anthony Edwards, who, as we all know, is lighting it up in the NBA now for Minnesota. He's a pretty decent player, right?
All right.
Pretty, yeah. It's all right. But Abdur-Rahim just preaches consistency and connection is what the 2 words that he was talking about, especially in his before season press conference. Those were the 2 things that he was preaching about the most, and his finishing statement to that was that culture wins out. He's very involved in the community, and that is something that sticks out as well. Like, not just like the basketball community, but the actual South Florida community as well. So that to me was what stuck out as the glue for this team was him. And I love the culture that he's building. I texted you after watching some press conferences, and I'll still stick by this. I might have found my new favorite college basketball coach with him.
Exactly. How many players from Kennesaw did he bring over?
He brought over 3. So 2 of the main guys that he's got in his starting lineup right now. Chris Youngblood, who's second on the team in points, almost tied for first. If you want to take out decimal points, then he'd be averaging 15 a game, along with Selton Miguel, who's leading the team in points. As I said, if you add that extra percentage point. Brandon Stroud, who's a fellow wing as well, he's in the starting lineup. And then Karen Jennings is not currently in the lineup, but he's played a few games this year. So yeah, those are the 3 players that he's brought over. So he's got retention as well. The players like playing for him, and they wanted to continue playing for him at South Florida.
Right. Not much different than Corey Gibson at Austin Peay, right? He brought over a whole host of players, and they're from in his first year there, and you're seeing some similar, not nearly the success here from a win-loss perspective. We're definitely seeing some success with that carryover. His whole coaching staff even came with him. Gibson's did, right? Yes. So yeah, it tells you something about him and a similar character first kind of approach to coaching. So
yes,
good to see some of these younger guys, and maybe lesser known names carving a niche for themselves in the coaching ranks for sure.
Yes, absolutely. You love to see that. Some other notes about here before we get into the main reason why you and I think that they're winning games is that the last time, so they're currently on schedule to make March Madness this year. And that would be the first time since 12 years ago, back in 2012, where they were a 12 seed. And during that season, they actually upset Temple, number 5 seed Temple, in the first round of the March Madness Tournament, 58-44. They ended up losing in the second round to, I believe, Ohio State is who it was to. But they're currently projected as an 11 seed this year in March Madness, Dad. And one thing that I wanted to ask you about is that, so this team has a 13-game win streak, and that's South Florida. Their second longest win streak in NCAA men's basketball currently. Can you take a guess as to who the longest win streak is currently held by?
Current or for the season?
Current.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
I'll give you a hint. It's a team that struggled at the beginning of the year, really bad, was ranked at the beginning of the year, and has currently gone undefeated in their conference.
Oh, I was going to say Michigan State, but they just lost this week based on what you just described.
Right. It is not Michigan State.
And I know they had a couple losses too.
This team is on the western half of the United States.
Oregon?
Not Oregon. They're in a smaller conference than Oregon.
Okay.
I'll give you another hint. One team traditionally dominates this conference each year.
St. Mary's.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. Nice. Yes, so Gonzaga obviously typically dominates the conference, but they are not this year. But yes, so St. Mary's has a 15-game win streak, and South Florida has a 13-game win streak. Funny enough, Dad, in the current bracketology, I mentioned South Florida is an 11 seed. The number 6 seed that they're projected to play against, St. Mary's.
Is Mary?
Yes. So that'd be quite a first.
We watched St. Mary's early in the year, and I was kind of like, ooh, they got a lot of work to do. They were defensively had a lot of holes, but yeah, I haven't actually watched any of their games recently. But obviously, you can't. The record speaks for itself. We'll let the record speak for itself.
Yes.
For sure.
But yes, so that's a little history on their March Madness appearance, kind of what's going into the future here. Now let's talk about why they're winning games. They got two guys that I think are mainly responsible for this, and those two guys would be Kason Pryor and Selton Miguel. And we briefly talked about their little bit play styles. So Miguel is first on the team in points, as I mentioned, and Pryor is third on the team in points off the bench. Dad, a couple other stats here for you, just to tell you. So Pryor's come off the bench in the past 3 games. Before that, when they were in so they're on the 13-game win streaks, the 10 games before the past 3, they averaged 28 points off the bench. And then in their past 3 games, they've averaged 41 for these two guys. Well, not just these two, but as a bench. Like, these two have been the main charge as to why they've been averaging that number. And that's contributed to winning success here. Obviously, win over number 24 seed at the time, FAU. Then beat the worst team in the conference, UTSA. But then that big win against SMU just now, which seems to have propelled them into that top 25 AP poll. So those two are huge just talk about a little bit as a coach, how important is having bench production for your team?
Oh, absolutely. It's humongous. I mean, where I coach at high school level, if you're 8 deep, that's a good number. And maybe it's not too different in Division I men's basketball, but 9, 9, maybe 10 on occasion to get at least some level of rotation with decent minutes. But yeah, the bench is huge, and I think even more so than just generally with bench is important because you don't know game to game what matchups might be working, what players might be a hot or cold, right? You need that 7, 8 to really make things click over the long term. But I just think it's impressive that, you talked about 2 players here that are their top 3, 2 of their top 3 scorers that are coming off the bench. What's it tell you about the coach and his knowledge of what works best for the players, what brings that chemistry and that gel to make each player work individually, right? There's some reason why he's bringing Pryor in off the bench, not starting him, even though he's leading the team in rebounds. He's 3rd in the team in scoring. He shoots 80% from the line, 81% from the line. Right? Those are stats that you normally think are attributed to a starter, but he's coming off the bench for some dynamic outside of just when you look at stats or height, weight, and athleticism kind of thing. So I think it again tells you, right? Rahim's got his finger on the mental part of the game and what's working best for his club.
Yes. And
that as a coach, that's the ultimate. Right? When you have that and the kids buy and the players buy into it, there you go.
Yes.
Right,
Absolutely. Well, I can answer actually why they're coming off the bench. So he talked about it in a couple pressers. He was just saying that Pryor's a little inconsistent, but Pryor's a guy that will come in and ask, hey, coach, why am I not starting? And then he'll come and work and try to prove that he should start instead of just sulking about it. Then also as well with Miguel, he said that he just feels that that's a better role for him on this team is to be the 6th man. So just let those better scoring players or those more offensive players come in off the bench and give your team that extra push. I mean, they're still playing starter minutes. It's not like they're not playing a lot of time. They're playing sometimes more than the starters are, majority of the time more than the starters are. It's just that they're coming in off the bench to give that extra energy, that extra push, which, as you said, just speaks to what Rahim is trying to build at South Florida, or where his just mind is as far as the actual game goes.
Right.
And then,
and I look at something with coaching perspective is talking to the players. Doesn't matter if you're the number 1, number 9, the number 13 on your team. Talk to your players out there. Explain their role, what you see them, strengths, weaknesses, where you'd like to see them improve, to try to find out what buttons to press for each. Everybody thinks differently, everybody learns and performs differently. We try to find the best out of everybody. But explaining your perspective and what you see their role to be is huge. Right? That way you take some of that question out. Well, I think I'm a 3-point shooter, I'm a scorer, I should be setting up in the corner and knocking threes when the ball's thrown over to me. But if your coach is thinking, well, no, I want you to dribble, drive, and create points, or create movement through your dribbling skills, right? You got to have that conversation and explain stuff. So it's hugely important. Obviously, we're not in the locker room. We don't know what goes on there. But again, when I think about what he's doing in terms of the starters and non-starters here, that's some of the stuff that comes to my mind is what might be going on. Is he's having those conversations. Here's why I have you in this role, and like you said, go. I'm expecting you to go work, and off you go. Yeah. And if it works, if it's clicking, everybody's happy. It doesn't matter where you start, if you start or if you don't start. That's where everybody finishes. That's the most important thing there.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he was very adamant in all his pressers I've seen of him that he's developing them not only as basketball players but young men. Actually, he said when he recruited Anthony Edwards to Georgia, he told him, hey, if you're just coming here for the basketball part of it, then don't come here. And then the head coach looked at him and said, hey, maybe don't say things like that anymore when we have a top prospect in. But yeah, no,
he's a one and done, so who knows?
Right. Well, everyone knew he was going to the NBA.
Yep, for sure.
But yeah, so let's wrap here by talking about just what we see for postseason for USF. Dad, what are your projections for them? Well, first off, if they don't win their American Conference Championship, does this team still deserve to be in March Madness?
Right. I think it kind of depends for me. That answer depends on how they don't win. In other words, if it's an overtime 3-point loss, right in the finals, I think they've made it through the conference tournament almost. Just luck up one ball falling out here or there makes a difference. If they bow out early, then maybe get another argument otherwise that they're off the bubble in that scenario. Yes. So that's kind of where I'm at. I some statistics that I was researching. Excuse me. They're 7-1 in 5-point games. 7-1. So it tells me two things. One, they're winning close games. They know how to win close games. But it also means they've got a lot of close games. Eight 5-point games is quite a bit, right? So are they just getting lucky? And when you add to that point, they are number 11 in terms of, free throw percentage differential, meaning they knock down 74% of their free throws. Their opponents make 67% of their free throws. That differential, 7.4, they're the number 11 in country. So that's a bit of, I would call that a bit of luck, right? They're winning, they're 7-1 at 5-point games, and they set 7.3 free throws per game that they score more than their opponents do. So is that luck or is that skill? Like, right? It makes me wonder, is the law of averages going to catch up to them come crunch time here? And some team's going to knock down 18 out of 20 and knock them out of the tournament. Just from a pure thing like that, right? Obviously that might not happen. But, so I think I could see them, I definitely think they're going to make the tournament. My gut is that they're going to be a one and done. Probably a good game. Maybe they'll sneak one out depending on the matchup, but that's my gut, is that they'll probably be a tough loss in the first round. How about yourself? What do you see? What are you going to predict?
No, that's a really good stat. That was really great research on your part. I'm very proud of you for doing that. That's great research. For me, so you talk about free throw shooting. First of all, in the past 13 wins that they've had on the streak here, they've actually improved to 77% shooting from the three, or from the charity stripe. Sorry, not the three. 77 right. From the three would be incredible shooting. But for me, I see this team. This team is honestly, it gives me eerie FAU vibes from last year, and it's interesting to say because they are in the American with FAU now, which, FAU came from the Conference USA last year, but it's just a team that doesn't have a whole lot of game-breaking talent, but just works really well together as a unit. Right. And to me, that is what I think sets them apart as a team that could be one of those potential upset teams that continues to make, like FAU last year, like Loyola Chicago a few years ago, like one of those shocking teams that just comes from maybe not a Power 6 conference, but really just has everything that they need to make a good push. And I think that at the end of the day, it comes from team chemistry. Right. One thing that does concern me with this team is rebounding. Kason Pryor is the only one on the team that really seems to be able to accumulate a mass amount of rebounds in a single game, and that concerns me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. But yes, so that concerns me. They also gave up, let me pull up the stat here. I think it was 32. I'm sorry, not 32. So they gave up 12 offensive rebounds to SMU last game, and they had 0 in the first half. That was first half stats, but 12 offensive rebounds in the first half. Wow. To the opposing team, who, like similar to Florida State, just wasn't hitting open opportunities. And then you have none on the so no second chance points for you in the first half. And so I think that's the only thing that concerns me is if they get behind, they're going to need those offensive rebounds in order to catch up, and I'm not sure if this team is capable of doing that. So if they're going up against a well-rounded rebounding team, I think that's when they end up getting canned.
Yep, and I was going to throw that one out there too. Their rebound differential, go back to the differential, how many rebounds they get versus their opponents, they're actually at negative 0.6. So they get out rebounded on average every game. And again, you look at matchups in the tournament are so important to make it anywhere. And so, yeah, if you get a good, solid rebounding team, both offensive and defensive end, and you're not hitting your shots, whatever it might be, you'll find one other thing that isn't working that night. Yeah, you're in for some trouble. So,
but
yep, I agree. And those are the stats to me that stood out either which way were really the rebounds and the free throw shooting luck percentage kind of thing, if you will. right?
Right.
So,
But to the point, they're winning games without rebounding people or with getting out rebounded. So
correct.
is it like, okay, is that really an issue then if their team has found success to do it other ways? But that
I think it will come. Yes, right. You're absolutely right. They're winning now. They're winning close games. They're still winning them. Bottom line, I just think when you get to the tournament, now you're facing another level of intensity, another level of team that's gelling at this time, right? So they're gonna hit a roadblock. That my good again. The more I talk about it, the more we talk about it, the more I like it. One game, maybe they'll win. They'll squeak one out, again, depending on the matchup. But I can't see them carrying on through like what FAU did myself. I just think there's not quite enough depth to their roster to bring a long run in the tournament.
right. I think I wasn't necessarily. I don't think this team's FAU. They just give me flashes of FAU. I don't think they're going to the Final Four at all. Although Abdul Rahim did say in his opening presser for USF, he was like, "Hey, why not have Final Four expectations here at South Florida?" So that to me speaks volumes as well about his mentality. But I'm gonna go with Sweet 16 finish for this team.
Okay, there you go.
Couple big wins, and then they face a team that they just can't handle, and then they're out.
Right. Certainly could happen too. Right, cool. Very fun.
Awesome.
Good, fun discussion to talk about a team that neither of us have typically followed, or maybe, and certainly probably for the casual watcher out there that maybe may not pay attention to, so or know much about. So
Right.
it was fun for sure.
Yes, very fun team and I think a bright future for USF basketball.
Exactly. Great.
Well,
Cool.
that's going to do it here at Accurate Basketball. We want to thank you for watching again. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know where you think USF is going to finish. How excited are you for them to have their first ever AP Top 25 ranking in the history of school? Thank you again for watching, and God bless. Wait, before you go, just wanted to thank you once again for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at Curtis Acker. You can follow me on Instagram under at Curtis_D_Acker. Also subscribe to my other YouTube channel, Curtis D. Acker, all together. Once again, wanted to thank you for watching, and God bless you.